now. I'm really grateful to have a second person really important in my life at the moment, my one and only coach, Ankush Jain, who is someone in my world that keeps pointing me to what we also want to speak about in this program. And I'm really fortunate to have him share his time with us and agree to this interview. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on this recording, Moritz. I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you. I want to share, and this is what I'm going to do with every one of the guest speakers. So this recording is for the Being Business program. Ankush agreed to be one of the guest speakers there. And the Being Business program has those two parts, being and the business. And as I believe, and as I'm learning from Ankush, you can't separate the two. And I want to speak a bit about who you are being in my world, which is, sharing a bit of backstory. Last year, I attended an immersion of yours, which is a men's program you do 2 times a year. I've never experienced anything like it in the realms of men's work, and I've done a few things in that arena. So it's a 1 week that we spend with a group of 12 men. And when I was being there, like, I hear a lot of talk about being open, being out of ego, like coming from service, coming from love. One thing that really struck me about you was how you took feedback or things that could be seen as criticism in a very loving way. And you always came back to serving the person in front of you. And I experienced you last year, and I thought to myself, like, wow, this is powerful. Like, the way you're being there is really, really coming from love. And that was nothing compared to how I experienced you in this last year, and what got me straight into how can I make it work to work with you in terms of who you are today and how your being grew in that 1 year that I know you a bit better and closer. Another thing that I really appreciated about our connection so far is how practical you are in helping people. Like, through your being, you helped me so much in just practical advice, in helping me around steps to take into business that are coming from who you're being. But at the same time, you also represent what I had a conversation with Rich about, which is the practical part and the being part, and you put both together. So to me, you're loving service in action. So thank you so much for joining today. We spoke shortly about something else that you're up to, which is helping people to enroll in an event that is also about being, which is the ultimate experience in India. And who you're being over there is nothing short but service. So that's my way to introduce you today. Anything to add on that?
Well, firstly, thank you. Thank you, Moritz, for being so gracious. And I really appreciate you saying that. It means a lot. And I want to start by saying, it's been a real journey to show up as the guy I am today. I've been involved in some kind of personal development for over 2 decades, and there have been many lessons along the way, and I'm sure there are many lessons, in the future. I'm still learning. I'm still a student. I love the quote that Steve Hardison always shares, which is the difference between a student and a master is the master has learnt the art of always being a student. And I really resonate with that. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm looking forward to answering anything you've got to ask.
Cool. So I just want to be transparent, as that is one part of what I want to bring to people in the program, and being authentic. So I got a bit nervous introducing you, as I really see you as a man that knows your shit. And I want to draw on that knowledge a bit in asking you around how for you, and I know you do this work with coaches and you help people to get their business going, and you help with the work you do in the 3 principles around just personal development, bettering the quality of life for people. And I've heard many people by now speak about the impact that working with you had in their lives. I'm curious about how this conversation about being has impacted your life, and what you see as the biggest shift that happened for you over the last year since I got to know you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, in just over a year ago, in December 2021, I had scheduled a coaching session, what's called a Be With session, with a chap, a coach. He's not really a coach. That does him a disservice, but let's call him a coach, a chap called Steve Hardison. And he's known as the ultimate coach. And I'd heard lots about him, and I invested $5,000 for 2 hours of coaching with him, which was, for given the time, an extraordinary sum of money for me. But I'd only heard great things. And even before I had the session, he was serving me powerfully and sending me stuff to read and stuff to do in order to prepare for those 2 hours. And one of the things I was very fortunate was to read a manuscript of a book, not that he'd written, his wife had written it, Amy Hardison, in conjunction with Alan D. Thompson, which was about him. And so I read this manuscript and I couldn't put it down, and I was blown away, and I was messaging Steve about insights I was having and just really how touched I was. Except I was reading it about this guy. It was a great, in my mind, a great brochure, great book about this guy who's one of the best coaches in the world. Well, what happened was I have this session with Steve, and by the way, after I paid for it, his prices doubled, so I was glad to get in before that. And one of the first things we talked about was he gifts me, the book's now published by this stage, and he gives me a copy of the book. And he asked me to read it. And in fact, we spent 15, 20 minutes just talking about the importance of it and him asking me to read it. And in my head, I'm thinking, wow, I've paid a lot of money to be in this room. I've already read this manuscript. That was the first thought. And then I thought, well, he knows what he's doing. So if he's asking me to read it, there must be a really important reason to read it. And he gave me instructions on how to read it. He goes, don't read it about you. And these are on the back cover of the book. He said, don't read it about me, read it about you. And these instructions are on the back cover of the book. And he told me story after story of clients of his who had done that, even after they'd been in the book and had profound shifts after reading it. So I have this amazing session with Steve. That's a whole conversation in itself, which completely shifted my professional self-esteem, my confidence, let's say. But I go away and read this book, and it starts to shift in me, it starts to shift things in me. And then what happens is there's an event in London where this great guy called Matt Smith, he says, I want to put this event on in London, and all the profits going to charity. And long story short, I get involved and I help enroll a lot of people for that event. And we had 500 people in the room. It was a fantastic event. None of the speakers were paid. None of the organizers were paid. We ended up raising over £25,000 for a very worthwhile cause, which helps dads in London, and people are really struggling. And they really appreciated this money. And not only that, but the people who were in there had these powerful shifts. Now, I took over a month pretty much out of my business to focus almost exclusively on enrolling people for this event. And people are saying to me, how does this make sense, right? How does this make sense for your business where you are basically helping fill this event for you're not on the stage, you're not making any money from it. And it just felt right. And I'd been really impacted by this book. And Steve said to me, anything that you give, you're going to get back 100-fold. And I really saw that, right? And this is the whole being thing for me. This isn't about being something to get something. It's about really being something. So I go out, I enroll, and last year, my revenue in my business, which was already pretty healthy, tripled. Now, there were a number of reasons for that, but I would say a big part of it was because of who I was being. I wasn't being out to get for myself. I wasn't being the ways I used to be in many ways, and very insecure and not confident in my own skin. And I was being loving and giving, and that does something. That did something for me, and people felt that was part of the shift that you felt, right? And you mentioned that I'm going to be in India. Well, what ended up happening was another guy called Ranjan Kumar. He said, I want to do a version of this in India. And he asked me to be a speaker. And again, I hadn't put myself forward, hadn't tried to, position myself for that. But through who I had been in London and through various conversations and who he'd seen me as, he said, I really want you as a speaker here. So then I get to be a speaker. Now, great. Oh, you're going to be a speaker. No, it's all the money there is being raised to help women who are being sex trafficked. It's an amazing cause. All the speakers, we are buying our own tickets, which is crazy, right? Normally you're like, well, are you going to pay me? Are you going to pay for my flights? I'm paying for my own flights. I'm paying for my own accommodation. I'm paying for my own ticket. And what I know is this is already happening by being someone who knows this is really going to help people who are attending. I'm already shifting. My clients, I'm now having conversations, and they're getting more out of being with me and what they're paying me for than when I was not doing that. And so there are all these incredible benefits that occur. And this is kind of going beyond what I think your course is so wonderful, because this goes beyond any typical business building course, which is going to be focused on strategies and techniques, which we can cover, and I know you will cover. But beyond that, there's how you show up in the world. And when you show up as someone who really cares about people, who really loves the highest state state of being is love, right? And we don't often talk about that in business, but when you're being that, there's no way you don't become incredibly financially successful. There's no way. And I think this is a piece that I certainly missed for a very, very long time. There was always an agenda, like I will serve or I will love people, but as long as I get something. And when that shifted, everything shifted in my business. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, it so much does. And you just reminded me that I want to share this little story that not many people know about why I hired you in the last year and why I signed up for your school, where you're helping people to see that. But you run the Coaching Prosperity, like your version of the Coaching Prosperity School, the AJC Coaching School, which is for me more about being than it is about a strategy, right? And the reason why I'm working with you and why you're now here is because of a conversation we had before summer. And we had this call and you pointed me to, you were looking at my Facebook posts that I had written. And I don't know if you remember that. And you said, you looked at the post, you read the post and you said, Moritz, who the fuck are you being here? Right? Because what you captured, and you knew that I could take that in the way you said it, what you captured was I was not being of service in that post, but I was being in my own head about making a post that makes this kind of impact and gets this kind of result. Yeah, the change that I experience and what I experience in meeting you and working with you and what I really want to invite people into in this program, as you so beautifully captured, is this part about the place we're coming from. Like, what is the place that we're operating from when we do this strategy, or when we work with this piece of content, or when we run our own retreats, when we run our own course schools, when we work one-on-one with people. Right. And it is about the result in the world. Client comes to us and they want to create this, but how we help people to create that. Yeah, that really matters to me. And I see it mattering to you.
There's a phrase that is coming up in my head right now, which I love. And I've been sharing it with people over the last year, which is you can't outgive the universe, right? You can't outgive the universe. And that's what I hear you pointing to. That's what I'm pointing to, is when we're talking about being, it's not this, ethereal concept that doesn't really mean anything. It's where you're coming from, really where you're coming from. And people feel that. And if we take, and it could be any business, it doesn't have to be a coaching business, but if someone's running a bakery and they're running the bakery for profit, you will feel that versus you going to a bakery and they're running it and they're running it from love. That doesn't mean they don't have good products. They put love into their food. They put love into dealing with the customers. They put love into everything they do. You will feel that. There's no way you don't. You go and visit a car mechanic. And this actually happened. I used to drive a BMW and we were in London and I found, okay, where's the best place to get my car serviced? And I looked on these forums and whatever, and I found this place and they went, this is the best place to go. And luckily it was kind of 15, 20 minutes from where we lived. So we drive out to this place. It's just got unbelievable, reviews and reputation online. And we get there and I've never ever been to a kind of car mechanics like this. It's super clean. There's no grease anywhere. You walk in, it's carpeted. They've got free drinks cupboard. They've got hot drinks for free. It's super open and welcoming. It's not overly masculine. So there are a lot of female clients that are going there. They've got a section where they're working on the cars, super clean. There's glass so you can see exactly what they're doing to the cars. Incredibly polite, very good value for money. I mean, it was just unbelievable, really. And you could tell, and they only worked on kind of BMWs and other German cars. You could tell they loved what they did for a living. You could just tell that. Now, guess what? They were always busy. They were always busy. And I'm sure the owner of that business was making very, very good money, right? Whereas now I see other people in different industries and that you can tell they're out to maximize profits. And I remember a client said this to me, hey, Ankush, you were speaking with me for a few sessions and then I would have hired you 2 months ago. You didn't need to wait. And I said, that would be really important to know if my modus operandi, if my whole purpose of being was to maximize the profits out of anyone I speak to, but it's not. So that's not important to me. Right. So this is something that I see in business everywhere. And because it can seem, woo-woo, people ignore it. It's not woo-woo. It's so relevant to the bottom line of any business, right? And this is across the board, whether it's someone who cleans your windows, whether it's someone who owns a petrol station, whether it's someone who owns a restaurant, whatever it is that you do. I've got a colleague of mine, he came to my house and when he was here, he went and saw this woman who delivers massage. And I know it's something that you used to do in a former life. And he said to me, he goes, I've been to 20 different massage therapists and this guy's from Germany. I live in England. He comes to England and he goes, this this is the best massage therapist I've ever been to. Kush, you need to go. Okay, I don't go. He comes back again 6 months later, and he purposely comes early and goes to visit her. He goes, she's that good. And he goes, Ankush, you need to go. And I said, oh, okay. And then he gifts me a voucher for a free massage. And he said, she's this good. I'm buying you a session with her. You need to go. She's incredible, right? Now, this woman, she's being a certain way in her business, which is having people come from abroad and then buying sessions for other people because they care for them and they want them to experience it. That's what we're talking about, right? She cannot outgive the universe. She gives to a client. She gives out in the world. It comes back, right? And now what we're not saying is give and put yourself last. That's not really giving, right? If I'm giving, and I have no energy and I have no energy to give to you today and I'm tired, that's not me really giving. So giving doesn't exclude yourself. Being doesn't exclude yourself, right? It includes that, but it doesn't exclude other people. It's all of that. And there's a way to be where you can really honor and love yourself, honor and love your business, honor and love your clients, the whole works. And anyone that starts tapping into that, you're never going to need to worry about making money again. Money will flow to you, not in a woo-woo way, but because that's what people pay for.
Right. There is so much gold in what you just shared. I really encourage people to listen back to this conversation. And I'm so glad that we're going to have more of this. Just to contest to that, like the reason why I got your client, why I became your client is because of who you're being. And that I really felt you're not attached to me sending you the money. In fact, you said like, hey man, I'm full. I'm sorry. I can't really take you. Right. And I've seen that in my own business since working with you. The more I come from that place, the more people want to work with me and the more people want to really experience what it is that I do. And I feel like it's even less about what I do today, even though I can do more, but it's way more about who I'm being while I do it, right? I can have the same conversation like a year ago. And by it coming from a different place, it has a different impact. So it's beautiful what you're pointing us to. And I'm really looking forward to get more of that. We're going to have a masterclass with you where people are free to experience that and ask you questions. And what is one last thing that you would like to give to people that are coming to the program or right now are thinking about joining the program?
Well, I'll say this, right? I coach and I speak to a lot of coaches. I've been doing this for 10 years. I run a big community of coaches, and just given who I am and what I do, I speak to a lot of people. I speak to a lot of coaches. And Moritz, I really want to acknowledge you because you're someone who I haven't met someone who at the same time is so committed to their craft and getting better as a coach and really maximizing their business growth. And at the same time is so committed to loving people. And so what I know is that anyone who signs up to this program with you, even if I'm not on it, if you have no other speakers and they're just with you, I know people are going to leave the program going, that was the bargain of the century. Not because of anything I say, but because of how I've seen you show up in the world and how committed you are to people, right? There's no way you're going to allow people to come to your program and not have the best opportunity for just significant transformation, right? I know that there is nothing else like what you're producing on the planet. This simply isn't. So I would say if you're on the fence, if you're considering joining this program, and by the way, I don't get any commission for this. I'm just telling you that I know, and I'm very careful about who I endorse because it reflects back on me, but this would be the easy endorsement I would ever give to anyone doing a program, right? And it speaks volumes about you that you're putting this program together to really help people. And then you're investing, not just working with me, but I know other things you do, other people you're investing in, and you're coming to India on the 25th of February and putting that time and attention into who you're being. People are really, really in for a treat. I know that from my heart.
Thank you so much, Ankush. That really means a lot to me. Yeah, I try to put some words on who you're being for me in my world, but yeah, I think words sometimes can't do that justice. I'm so glad that you joined the program and that you're part of the guest speakers and that you're going to do this masterclass with us, and that a lot of what's coming out there is coming out of the work we do together and your commitment to who you are being. I'm really looking forward to continue this journey together. Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Yeah. And one last thing I'll say is that whether you come to this program or not, whether you never see me or Moritz ever again, if something's speaking to you about being or you want to know more about being, go to Amazon right now, now, buy a book called The Ultimate Coach by Amy Hardison, read the back cover, read the first few pages, and then read the book. And if you go away and come back to the book, do it again, read the back cover, read the front few pages, and read the book. Read it about you, and you will experience a shift in your being. So do that before you do anything, and you will then know whether this program is right for you or not.
Right. Well, thank you so much for pointing that out. And I have done that. My wife has done that. You have done that. And we've all experienced crazy shifts in our own life. And it's the reason why we're going to see each other in India and why we invite you to do the same. So thank you so much for this conversation, Ankush, and really, really appreciate you giving this time and running a bit over. Thank you.
Thank you.